Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me as always is Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, Chris. Just doing whatever a Spider-Man can. Or a spider can, however that song goes.
Yes, thank you. Also with me this week, he's back from his Eat, Love, Pray sabbatical, right in time for his
but
birthday.
Not in that order.
Yeah, not in that order, and in time for his birthday, or our birthday. Justin, how are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm good. And I skipped Pray, by the way. I go straight from Eat to Love.
Eat to Love.
Makes room for the other two.
Yeah. More eat, more love.
Well, it's great to have you back, man.
Thanks, man. I'm glad to be back. Happy early birthday, Chris.
Happy early birthday to you, sir.
Yeah. Happy early birthday, guys. Also happy to have you back, Justin. So, real quick before we get started, where you been? What you been up to?
Oh, man. What haven't I been up to?
Indeed.
That's the shorter answer.
Eating and loving, apparently.
Yeah, praying. You haven't been up to that, apparently.
Yeah, that's the answer to that question. I basically had like a crazy busy May. I was working like every single weekend, and I looked ahead to my June schedule, and I had a lot of work and then a lot of extracurricular is the right word, events going on every weekend in June. Basically, I was struggling to like put the podcast up there in priorities to get it done, to like go see movies and come record like each week. Like it was just way too much stress. So I basically had to be like, I can't do June. There's no way to do it. I had a friend's bachelor party. I had then the wedding the following weekend. The next weekend, with like a friend of mine was graduating with his PhD and had like a big celebration party. So I had to go out of town to like visit him for that. So it was basically just been a lot of traveling, a lot of doing stuff, which has been a lot of fun. And I've missed doing the podcast. I have like watched movies and then been like, well, who do I talk about this with now?
Guess I'll just mark it down in my journal.
Yeah. Go talk about it with myself.
Put it on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
I think it's also, I just want to go ahead and put out there, I was at the wedding.
You were at the wedding. And it was awesome to see you.
Indeed. It's been probably the first time we've hung out since we started the podcast, I think.
Yeah, in person for sure. I count this as hanging out, kind of.
That's true. I guess I do too. That's why it felt weird. I was like, I guess I haven't seen you in a long time.
I want to note that, however, being friends with the groom, I was not invited, so I didn't get to go.
Hey, man, there was a lot of people that weren't invited.
Yeah.
All right.
It was very hot and limited in seats.
That's cool. I'm good with it, and I hope I'm the best.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Just crazy busy. Had to make cuts somewhere in life, to make time for everything and not go crazy, basically.
Yeah, but no worries. We had a good friend Peyton step in, and we didn't miss a beat, except for that one week where we missed a beat. But beyond that, we were delivering. So no worries, man. I hope you got well rested.
Definitely, and it's been great to listen to the podcast. I haven't listened to all of every episode because I haven't seen some of the movies yet, but it was great to listen to it, and Peyton did a great job. And if he's listening now, thank you so much, Peyton, for stepping in for me. I appreciate it.
And you guys will hear more of Peyton next week when he returns for our review of Midsommar. Just FYI. Now, normally we like to start off every episode in a section called News on the March and then move into our feature review. This week we are reviewing the newest MCU film, Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah, and keep in mind that each month we do a Casually Criterion episode on Criterion, of all things. And now that Justin's back, we are going to do Jean-Luc Godard's Weekend very soon, so keep an eye on our feed for that. And then if you want to, go back and check out Stalker from last month. And also the cool thing is that you guys get to vote on it each month, which one that we're going to do. We each pick a movie, and you guys get to vote. So make sure you guys keep an eye on our social medias for that.
Should be fun. And then also, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at @casualcinecast. You can shoot us an email at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And as always, please do not forget to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Thank you in advance. And subscribe,
You're welcome in extreme hindsight, because I left us a 5-star review forever ago.
Oh, thank you. All right. And with that, gentlemen, are we ready to move into News on the March?
Oh,
Let's do it.
News on the March!
All right, well, since I haven't been here for a while, and it's been the longest time since I've done a News on the March segment, I will go first.
Makes sense.
I want to talk about a film that I watched from the Criterion channel this weekend. And it's a film that I've been wanting to watch for a long, long, long time and just have never found the time, especially since watching Burning last year. It's from the same director, Lee Chang-dong. But the film is Secret Sunshine, which...
Good movie.
It's a South Korean drama. I was going to call it a thriller for a second, but it's really not that thrilling. But it's basically about a woman who moves to like her ex-husband's hometown, which is a small town, because she wants to get away. And her son gets kidnapped and killed. And then she ends up, through the grief process, finding God, but then starts questioning how God works because he forgives everybody, and like, how can God forgive her son's killer? And then starts questioning her whole faith and the reason she got into it. And I don't really want to give away any more than that, but it's a super fascinating movie that is beautiful and has an incredible performance from like the lead actress, whose name I cannot remember right now.
Yeah, I remember when Criterion actually released this film on Blu-ray. This was one I think I just bought right away because I was going through a South Korean films kick at that time. And I remember buying it and watching it all by myself and being like, I don't have anyone I can talk about this movie with, but I love it. I haven't seen it since then, and I would love to watch it again because it's like starting to fade from my memory. But hearing you talk about it now reminds me of just how awesome this director is and how I really, really need to see more of his stuff.
Yeah, her name, by the way, is Do Yeon Jeon. I'm doing my best to pronounce that correctly.
I think you did a good job for what it's worth.
Thank you. But yeah, I think that if anybody I know would love this movie, it would be you, Mike. Like if I knew you hadn't seen this movie and I had just watched it, I would have I would have texted you, but I know you've already seen it. So I would have been like, Mike, you have to watch this movie now. It deals a lot with religion and grief. And I think that you have like a predilection towards those like movies that talk about religion and question religion and that sort of thing, like with your love of like First Reformed, right?
Oh yeah. That's definitely a subject matter that is dear to my heart. I even tried to tackle it to a less graceful extent in my own short films in college. And also, just to note, Secret Sunshine also has some very wonderful compositions. Like, every shot is just wonderful and made with such care. And I really, really love it and have not forgotten it.
Mm-hmm. Chris, have you seen this one?
I haven't, but everything you guys are saying make me want to. And you said it was on the Criterion channel now?
It is.
Perfect.
It's on Blu-ray on my shelf, too.
Oh,
nice.
Just mail that over to me.
You got it.
Thanks, buddy.
I had to make a Criterion birthday list for my fiance, so she could go maybe buy me some Criterions from the Barnes & Noble sale that's going on right now. Nice. And I watched Secret Sunshine and then was like, hold on, give me that list again. Like added Secret Sunshine to it really quickly.
Nice.
So maybe I'll get it too.
I hope so.
All right. Well, yeah, I highly recommend that film, and that is pretty much all I have to say about it since we're not, I don't want to spoil anything. So moving on.
So it looks like here, I think today even, a new trailer dropped from Disney. And this is the newest live-action remake trailer for Mulan.
Yeah, they actually, I think they premiered it during halftime of the Women's World Cup final, which I'm a big soccer fan, as avid listeners know.
Live.
So I saw it because I was watching that game. I watched the whole Women's World Cup, and it was amazing, by the way.
Yeah, I know. At work, they've been putting on the Women's World Cup and getting really into it, and I get bummed because I'm not into the World Cup, but I am into the Weather Channel, and that's what we usually watch, and we can't watch it while the Women's World Cup is going on.
Oh. Wait, what's happening on the Weather Channel?
Oh, dude, just constant videos of tornadoes and floods and earthquakes and fires and just like disasters. Really, that's all they show. Is just like there's always like news ticking in the right hand corner or whatever, but really it's just like the natural disaster channel.
Okay,
right. Yeah. That's funny, but to the Mulan trailer, I think the reason that I wanted to talk about it was because I actually got excited watching the trailer. I was like, oh, yeah, this looks pretty good, at least compared to other Disney live-action remakes of late.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the reason that is because it doesn't seem like a exact remake.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of what is not charming about, like, The Jungle Book or Aladdin or the trailer for The Lion King, which is not out yet, so I don't know, but I assume, is that they are trying very hard to emulate the exact shots and the exact look of the cartoons, which are
Right.
already good on their own and don't need live action, right? So I think Mulan, it looks like they're adding stuff and changing things up a little bit. Overall, the same story, it looks like, but told with, I don't know, just different stuff.
I mean, it's kind of what I think we've talked about this before, but the thing that's lacking from the live action remakes is a new take, like bringing something new to it.
Yeah, the
which
stuff
is
that worked in Aladdin the most was the stuff they added.
Right.
Besides the songs. That didn't work.
Yeah, I had a friend that was like, "Oh, you have to watch the Mulan trailer," and she sent it to me. And I was just like, "Oh man, not another Disney live action
Here
remake."
we go.
And I did watch it, and I was like, I was surprised. I was like, "Is this a live action remake?" You know, I'm legitimately excited to see it. I hope it's good. I hope they're all good, the live action remakes, but I have more hope for this one.
Yeah, I actually hear that like they're changing things up a little bit more than you would think. For example, the character that Eddie Murphy plays in the cartoon, Mushu the Dragon, apparently in the live action version, that character is going to be a phoenix.
Yeah, I heard that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think so too. And I doubt there's going to be any Donny Osmond in there.
We'll see.
Indeed, we will.
There's definitely no songs. I believe I read that somewhere, right? They've cut all of the songs.
Oh, wonderful. That would make all these live action remakes so much better.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. I don't think I've seen any of the live action remakes yet, but that is the big kind of common complaint I hear from you guys and other people. So,
did you see Jungle Book?
No.
Oh, wow. Well, that was the worst part of Jungle Book for sure. It's like they didn't even commit to the songs in that one. They just did like half-ass songs where like a character would like talk sing.
Interesting. I did see Pete's Dragon, which was like that's not like in this series of remakes though.
I'm not sure that one counts, but I guess it does. But I don't put it in the same category in my head. Yeah.
But I don't think there were any songs in the original Pete's Dragon, but there's definitely none in the remake.
Oh, man. You know, when I was a little kid, I always used to think that Puff the Magic Dragon came from Pete's Dragon. But I never actually saw Pete's Dragon. I just assumed it from the name.
Yeah, it came from Meet the Parents.
That's right.
Well, that's all my thoughts on Mulan.
All right, cool. So, moving on.
So, since we won't be getting to our next Casual Criterion episode, we did want to tackle a big, important milestone coming up in the Criterion Collection, which is the Spine number 1000, which is kind of a big deal. There's a lot of people in the Criterion forums and Reddit and stuff like that doing a lot of guessing as to what this Spine number 1000 is going to be. Criterion people have like hinted that they are going to do something special for the 1000. It's not just going to be another title. So I thought it would be fun if we tried to make our predictions before those get announced. We think it's going to be announced in this July series of announcements.
Ooh la la. So yeah, why don't you kick it off, Chris? What do you think the 1000th release will be?
So there's nothing I can really say that I haven't already read or like heard going through the forums and stuff. There's one that I really want it to be. That is my secret dream and hope. And then there's one that I think it'll be. And so I'll start off with the one I really want it to be. And that is 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think that would be really awesome if the Spine number 1000 was 2001: Space Odyssey.
Would never happen. They just released the version we saw in IMAX like on Blu-ray like a few months ago.
Right? Yeah, so that's not going to happen, but that would be, like my secret wish and dream. What I think will happen is Citizen Kane will be Spine number 1000.
I don't think so, buddy.
You don't think so?
Warner Brothers doesn't release their movies to third-party
Not always. It's been in the selection before. We'll see.
Not on Blu-ray or DVD.
It's on Laserdisc, right?
Yeah, on Laserdisc, yeah.
Laserdisc had different rules.
You want to put like $5 down on this?
Okay.
Like make a bet?
I bet you will not be a Warner Brothers movie.
Okay, so we're just going to do Warner... Okay, $5. I'll bet that it's Citizen Kane.
All right.
I don't know how you'll ever get my money, but...
There's apps for that now.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I'm actually kind of hoping for a Orson Welles box set of some kind, like the Ingmar Bergman box set last year. So that's kind of what my dream is on that one as well. So, Mike, what is yours?
Well, I'm also of the opinion that it probably needs to be a box set.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I could think that would be a big enough deal. And, I've been hearing Grand Budapest thrown around a lot. You mentioned that earlier. I think it'll be a Wes Anderson box set.
That would make sense, yeah.
I think that would be interesting and cool. Because, they don't have Moonrise. never mind.
No, they do have Moonrise.
Did they have Moon? Oh, they do. They did release Moonrise. Holy nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wes Anderson.
They just don't have Grand Budapest or Isle of Dogs yet.
Isle of Dogs maybe doesn't count, or they probably couldn't get that one. But I think a Wes Anderson box set of what they do have, maybe the live action Wes Anderson.
Would you be... Is it somewhat disappointing that almost all of those are already in the collection, though?
I think that's never stopped them before for releasing a really cool box set.
Yeah. Like the
True enough.
Kurosawa and Bergman box sets.
Yep.
Most, like
Exactly.
80% of those were already in the collection, I think.
Mm-hmm. You just
Or
got to
they're
come up with like
releasing
one or
around
two
it.
new ones or obscure things.
Yeah.
They could even put the special feature of his really awesome commercials.
Oh,
Wes
yeah,
Anderson
those-
does some really great commercials.
That he does.
I think that would be a cool special feature. What do you think, Justin?
Well, I mean, you guys have named a lot of the most popular choices and the things that it seems like it could likely be. I started to think like maybe it's going to be a big important movie like the Citizen Kane, or maybe they're playing on the 1,000 with like Grand Budapest Hotel. So
Yeah.
I have a kind of realistic guess. Just it's also kind of fun because I don't think they will do it, but like I would say the Godfather trilogy,
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
just because it's such a huge milestone in cinema. And it's like, I think like The Godfather and Citizen Kane go back and forth like every 10 years of like which is the greatest film of all time in like critic polls, not in my opinion.
Sidebar, which one do you think is better?
Citizen Kane.
Interesting. I like Godfather better, but then again, I think I consider The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2 like one big mass thing because I watched them like at once.
Yeah.
So
Makes
in
sense.
my brain, the experience is all like wrapped up together. So Citizen Kane is probably right.
Yeah, I think the Godfather trilogy would be really cool. My fun guess, and it would be a bit of a troll, but also like hear me out because I think it would be kind of cool. But The Room, not that it's a
Okay.
great movie, but they have some movies in the Criterion Collection that aren't great, but they're like important. And I feel
Yeah.
like there's no other film that I can think of that shouldn't be known that is. Like it's such a crazy phenomenon of like the cult status of this film and like how people go and see it. You know, they have like midnight screenings of it like every weekend in like every big city.
Sure.
You know?
Like it's more culturally relevant than a lot of films that are good in the Criterion Collection.
Yeah. And that's what I think it's like culturally significant. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would just be tickled pink if it did.
That'd be fun just to see like the Criterion comment sections break down all over Reddit and
Yeah, exactly.
And then they could have what was the James Franco movie that could be a special feature on it.
The Disaster Artist.
The Disaster Artist could be
that
a
movie's
special
already
feature.
been forgotten about, so it could already work as a special feature.
There you go. They could make like the book, The Disaster Artist, could be the booklet in the edition.
yeah.
You know, sometimes they put books in there, which is it's a fantastic book. I didn't like the movie, so it would be worth it just for the book.
Yeah, I actually never read the book, but I only saw the movie, and I thought it was fine to okay, which I guess is the same thing as fine.
Agreed. The book is good to really good.
Ooh,
At
that's
times.
better than fine to okay.
Yeah.
Last I checked.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I can't wait to see what the 1,000th Spine is. Like, I think it's going to be a big deal. Hopefully it shocks everybody and nobody's gotten it right through all of the predictions.
Yeah, it's probably just like a frame from every movie in the Criterion Collection edited together in one movie.
Just one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be
one
awesome.
frame.
That's fine. I did want a joke guess was like they took the 1,001 movies book and just made a box set of the 1,001 movies you must see before you die.
Oh my god,
And
that
it's
would be
1,000
so expensive.
movies big.
That'd be amazing, but it would also be so expensive.
Yeah.
Let me mortgage my house real quick.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So we'll see.
Okay, so the last thing I have on my mind for the news on the March section is I watched Deadwood the Movie.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah, I've been working my way through the Deadwood series so that I could get to this point. I waited until the movie came out and had a warm reception before, starting the series to begin with because I hate cliffhangers and things with no closure. I did talk about Deadwood a few weeks back, and I have been taking my time through it. Not that it's a bad series, but it's not like a cliffhanger type series where you gotta binge it. And the movie, I ended up liking quite a bit. It took a little bit to grow on me because it feels different than the show.
Yeah.
It feels too brief and too short-winded. Whereas like Deadwood was very long-winded with lots of like monologues and things. The movie takes place 10 years after the end of the show, even though it was made like 14 years later. And it attempts to wrap up the storylines for all of the characters, or basically all of them. The main people you all like are there. There are some actors, though, that died during the hiatus, and I'm thinking of like Powers Booth or Ricky Jay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I enjoyed the movie quite a bit. What did you think, Chris?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think in some ways the movie felt a little bit like a reunion show because it wasn't a TV show. You know, it wasn't an extended season, which probably would have been better. The thing is, when it ends, I'm not sure that it gives me any more closure than necessarily it did at the end of season 3. Like, I always think that the show is about the town, and the people in the town don't necessarily matter. The town is just going to keep going, right? And it's because it's the story of Deadwood, and that's how I kind of always thought of it, and that's how the movie kind of ends to me. You know, like people come and go, but the town's always there, type of thing. I did really enjoy it, and I thought it was a really good swan song for David Milch. You know, like as I believe it was as they were shooting and they were writing it, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So, like, if there's a good time to get it out, this was a good time. And I just really had a great time visiting those characters again and seeing them 10 years older. You know, it was really fun. A lot of good work done in there.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, to me, I got to watch it like 30 minutes after I finished season 3.
Yeah.
You had to wait 13 years or 14 years.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear our different takes on it, and you know how you said you didn't feel any more closure from it, and I could tell you that right now, like I would not have felt any closure from the series at all. And maybe if I lived with it for a decade or two and came to peace with it, that'd be different.
Yeah, I think I had to come to terms with it. You know, like, and I think I read an article and it was like, you know, it's really about the town, and that's, you know, kind of what it was talking about. So, and I was okay with that ending, but I'm glad that we got to go back and visit these characters. It was, you know, like a big giant smile on my face the whole time.
Yeah, I enjoyed seeing everyone after like the huge 10-year gap. I imagine it was even more fun for you since you waited over a decade. It was nice to hear all the cocksuckers and F words being thrown around in a way that feels unique to this show.
Calamity Jane has an opening monologue that just, you know, kind of set the tone and made me so happy to watch, you know, Deadwood the movie, because you're back. You know, you hear a crazy Calamity Jane monologue.
She's such a unique character that it took me like 2.5 seasons. The show was almost over before I adapted to her and her choices she's making as an actress. You know, I love the show so much because like they can make like vulgar language feel so eloquent. You know, like I've never heard the word cocksucker and stuff like that be used in such like beautiful flowery dialogue. Until the show.
Everybody's already said this, but it's very Shakespearean in the way it talks, and the language, you're right, is very beautiful, and it flows so well out of these actors' mouths. Like when we talked about Deadwood before, Ian McShane, you know, was born to play this role. And
this is the role that you've never seen Ian McShane unless you've seen him in this. Like you may know Ian McShane, but he doesn't. I've never seen him come alive in a role like he does in this role.
Agreed. Yeah.
If I think I had one complaint about this movie, it's that it's only an hour and 50 minutes long, and there is really no reason to make it that short. I hear there's actually like 30 minutes of additional scenes that they cut, and I have no idea why they would do that. It's premiering on HBO. Let's make the thing 2.5 hours if we want to. So, I don't know. I don't get it, but maybe the 30 minutes just wasn't that good of stuff, so they just cut it. But I feel like if you're going to come back after 13 years for just a hour and 50-minute movie, throw everything you filmed in there. Unless it just isn't good.
Yeah, that's actually Timothy Oliphant's hesitance to do the movie was always like, it was a TV show. Why are we going to do a movie? We should just do another series. You know,
do like a 6-episode arc.
Yeah. I think that's what I would have wanted more, but I'm satisfied with what I was given.
Yeah, I agree. And the last thing I want to say about the movie is the closing line of the movie is really great. And it's one of those lines that perfectly captures the movie and also the spirit of the show. And I don't know if it's a spoiler. You can let me know if it is, Chris, and if so, Justin, you can cut it. But the last 2 lines, and I won't say which characters they are, but there's a character that's praying, and it says, "Our Father who art in heaven," and the other character says, "Well, let him fucking stay there." And that's the end. And for some reason, that I thought was the perfect way to close Deadwood.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Well, that's all I've got for news on the march. as far as things that I have been watching and or doing. I think we have one more thing to talk about, though, and that is our friend of the show and listener, Matt Ward, wanted to send us his rebuttal to our Booksmart review from a few weeks back.
Yeah, he sent it in a while ago, but since I was on the podcast where we reviewed Booksmart, we wanted to save his rebuttal for when I was back, since it's probably aimed a lot at me.
Yep, and since we're back in the saddle again, full three of us, whatever you want to say. It's time to read it. So, Justin, why don't you bust it out? What did Matt Ward say to you specifically?
It might have said something to you, too.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Right. So he said, after listening to the podcast, I think there may be some things you guys missed about my current number one movie of 2019, Booksmart. While the one-night-only end-of-high-school plot device is frequently used in films like Superbad, Blockers, Dazed and Confused, etc., what sets Booksmart apart is Olivia Wilde's unique directorial style that comes alive off the screen visually. Wilde takes a solid screenplay and elevates it with her fresh perspective, a killer soundtrack, and deft hand at the sound mix that changes audiences' perspective of scenes. There's a truly special underwater scene scored to perfumed geniuses slip away, following Amy around a crowded pool that vividly and stunningly tells her quest for self-discovery in pictures and emotions rather than words. Rewatch this movie. It's on the level of Bo Burnham's 8th Grade.
Ooh.
And that's the part I think is like specifically aimed at me because I've sung 8th Grade's praises for so long on this, on the show.
Yeah, and I think some of that's aimed at me too because I frequently compared it to Superbad in the review. Everything he's saying here is right. I don't disagree with it. I don't know that I find the soundtrack to be quite as charming, but agree to disagree. Thank you for responding, Matt.
Yeah, but and I think like where it says the underwater scene where she's walking around a crowded pool, pretty sure that's in like the last act of the movie when they're at like a big party.
I would say probably the end of Act 2.
And that's to me where the movie was like picking up for us, if I remember correctly. So I don't disagree with him, and I think there's a lot of good stuff in the film. It's just for me, like as a whole, it didn't come together. I would gladly rewatch it because as I said on the show, it's a movie I want to like so bad, and I was so excited to watch it. Because it just has all the elements that I like.
Yeah, and I don't think we even trashed the movie. I think I'm sitting at a 3 out of 5 stars, and maybe a second watch can boost it up to 3.5 to 4. I'm not opposed to that. I liked Superbad more the second time after I saw it. I liked it the first time too, but I liked it more the second time.
I like the movie probably better than either one of you guys, but I don't think it's on the level of 8th Grade.
I don't think so either. I'm, like I said, glad to give it a second watch. What I will say, too, is what happens a lot, especially with us, is that when we all want to like a movie and we don't,
we're harder on it.
Yeah, we don't sing its praises as much as we try to figure out what was wrong about it and what went wrong because we want it to be better. Yeah. So it's like it comes across like we was like really dislike this movie.
Yeah. Actually, it was that happened to you and me last night in a conversation about a different movie that we'll talk about at a different time.
Yes, it will. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Astute observation, good self-reflection, Justin. Way to be introspective about the whole thing.
Yes. But yeah, thanks for rebuttaling. I don't mind hearing opposite opinions, especially when, Chris, you liked the movie a little bit more than Mike and I did, but like we were all kind of near the same area and kind of all agreed. So it's great to like read this other opinion and have it come in. Like, even if we don't read it out on the show, whatever, like I just like hearing other people's opinions, especially if they're different from mine.
For real, if you disagree with any of our takes on anything we talk about, send it in. If it's fun and brief enough, we'll read it on the show. We don't mind being corrected and told we're wrong.
And the other thing, too, about it that I really like is I like that he has a movie that he really loves. I may not love it as much as he does, but I'm glad that he loves it as much as he does, right?
Well, and I also understand why this would be his number one movie of the year so far. I genuinely do.
Stand it. It's not...
I comprehend it.
I don't want to get in 2019 as a whole or start a whole discussion on that, but like I can understand like why it's even towards the top of my list. That's all I'll say.
All right. Beautifully said, by the way.
Thank you.
And with that, are we ready to move into our feature review for Spider-Man Far From Home?
Yes.
Heck yes.
All right, let's do it.
Planning a trip?
Mm-hmm. Going to Europe. School trip.
Did you get your passport?
Peter Parker here to pick up a passport, please.
Mini toothpaste? Pack your suit.
I just want to go on my trip with my friends. Europe doesn't really need a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
All right, so as always, before we get into our review of Spider-Man Far From Home, wanted to let you guys know that if you haven't seen the movie yet, it's okay. You can keep listening. We won't be giving away any spoilers for the next, 10, 15, 20 minutes. But before we get into spoilers, we will give you a warning. We'll say, hey, let's move into spoilers, and you'll have a spoiler alert. Plenty of time to pause the podcast, go see the film, come back and finish listening.
That's right. Spider-Man Far From Home was directed by John Watts. It stars Tom Holland, Samuel L. Jackson, and Jake Gyllenhaal. The IMDb synopsis says, following the events of Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man must step up to take on new threats in a world that has changed forever.
That doesn't say anything about the movie.
Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah, it literally tells you nothing.
Yeah,
other than
like
this film comes after Avengers Endgame.
So, who wants to kick us off? I can do it, or one of you guys can go.
I nominate Justin. He's kind of rusty. He needs to get back in the saddle.
Oh boy. Okay.
Crack those knuckles and get going, Justin.
Oh,
all right.
Here we go.
Probably edit that out. We'll see.
I'll pop mine for you too, in case you need some extra pop noises.
Yeah.
Let's all just pop our knuckles.
Oh God. Okay. All
That'll
right.
be
So
fun to edit.
yeah, thank you. So Spider-Man Far From Home. I actually had not seen Spider-Man Homecoming, prior to getting ready to go see this film. It's one of the ones that I missed catching up on all the MCU in time for Infinity War and Endgame. But having enjoyed Infinity War, having enjoyed Endgame, I was looking forward to both of these movies. I've heard great things. I've heard good stuff from you, Mike. You told me I should watch it. So I did. I caught up on Spider-Man Homecoming before seeing this one. So
What'd you think of that?
Well, it was all right. I enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of in that perfectly acceptable Marvel movie.
Yeah.
In the sense that I enjoyed it and it wasn't boring.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't knock my socks off or anything like that. And basically, I kind of feel the same about Spider-Man Far From Home. I think ultimately I like Homecoming a little better because I enjoy getting to know the world and getting to know these characters. Even though it's Peter Parker and characters we've seen a dozen times, I enjoy getting to meet and explore this new world and the way that they handle it. The thing that I will say that kind of held me back a little bit from connecting with it as much on Far From Home is that we left New York.
Yeah.
And we left home, right? They went to Europe, and I kind of just wanted, I wanted a little bit more of him at home and in dealing with all of that instead of just going off to a different place where really our only connections are the Avengers stuff and his friend and his classmates and stuff who we've met in the previous movie. But that being said, I think this one avoids the problem that a lot of the other Spider-Man movies have in having a good and interesting villain. I love the performance from the villain in this film, and I also thought Homecoming had a great villain too. So
oh yes, it did.
Michael Keaton was fantastic in it, and so I will say credit to both of these Spider-Man movies for being much better than any of the other ones, in my opinion. They're along with Into the Spider-Verse, those three are head and shoulders above every other Spider-Man movie for me, if not for the great villain. So I'll just say I really enjoyed it. It's funny. It's not bad at all. I guess I feel like I kind of say that a lot about Marvel movies, and I don't mean it to sound as negative as it can sound, but it's perfectly enjoyable, basically. Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
I think that sounds like praise to me.
Yeah. All right. So whoever wants to go next. Mike, do you want to go next?
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, I was a fan of Spider-Man Homecoming. I think Tom Holland is a very charming Spider-Man. I thought Robert Downey Jr. brought a unique dynamic to Peter Parker. So it made Spider-Man Homecoming feel a little fresher than just another reboot of Spider-Man,
Mm-hmm.
I've never really seen Spider-Man with a mentor that didn't eventually turn into a villain. So that was pretty cool. This movie, Far From Home, on the other hand, I was less sure about going in. And I don't know why. The advertisements looked fine, but I think Endgame just satisfied me, so I felt full,
Yeah.
But that said, I ended up really liking Far From Home, and I like it now more than I did when I first walked out of the theaters. And I saw it a few days back, because it opened a while back. Early last week.
Opened on a Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe the comedy works in Spider-Man Far From Home a little less than it did in Homecoming. And we can talk about that later. But also, on the other hand, it never annoyed me, any of the comedy. Like, it never felt like it slowed things down too badly or got cringy. And to be fair, some of the jokes actually did make me laugh. Just not as many as its predecessor. However, what it lacks in successful jokes, I think it makes up for in character. I enjoyed like the wholesome teen romance angle of this movie. And more than I thought I would, actually. I really enjoyed watching Peter be awkward around MJ, along with the dynamics of the students and how they behave with one another. All of that was really interesting. The high school element of this one felt a lot stronger than I think in most other Spider-Man movies. I also think Jake Gyllenhaal is here, looking like he is having the time of his life. And I think he's a great addition to the MCU. And that's all I can say here. But also, I think this movie has a lot of stuff on its mind. Possibly too much to handle gracefully at times. But I think the movie really swings for the fences. No pun intended. I think it's very influenced by the world today in this current political climate in some really obvious ways, and then some other less obvious ones. Yeah, that's where I'm at now. I really like this movie. Probably, besides Into the Spider-Verse, I think it's the best live-action Spider-Man movie. Well, I mean, Spider-Verse isn't live-action, but I think it's better than any of the Tobey Maguire ones, and I think it's better than Homecoming.
Wow.
Only just, though. I think it's only just.
Yeah, they're not far apart.
Yeah. So, Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. Justin, you said something that kind of struck me. You talk about how, it's a perfectly suitable, enjoyable time. And I think that's right, except for me, it's everything that's come before it elevates it a little bit higher than just an enjoyable time. Does that make sense? Like, the fact that Endgame just happened makes this movie better, and the way it deals with Endgame. Like, there's a whole opening sequence that kind of has exposition about what happened, what they call the blip. I don't think that's spoilery. It's like the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the way they kind of deal with the fallout from Endgame, and I think that elevates the movie for me to more than just an enjoyable time. It's just a little bit better than that, and I
like some of the jokes involving the blip.
Yeah. That whole opening sequence was really great, and a really great way of pouring a bunch of exposition at us real quick, and I liked how it did that. Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I liked, like you were talking about, Mike, the high school aspect of it was so much fun. The teachers I thought were really funny.
Martin Starr.
Yeah. But yeah, so I just really enjoyed all the aspects of the high school. I think Jake Gyllenhaal was good, and Samuel L. Jackson is always solid in these movies. But I think as a TV show, it's better than a movie. Does that make sense?
Well, that's just the MCU in general.
Yeah.
That's very true.
I mean, if this movie was on its own, I probably wouldn't like it as much. But because Endgame came first, I enjoyed it a lot more. And I also think Tom Holland is really good at Spider-Man. And Zendaya as MJ also does a really great job.
MJ's great. She's my favorite character in these movies. I think she's really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the side character, what is his name? Ned. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about, and some of it's spoilery, and I'm not sure. A lot
of it's spoilery.
Yeah. So let's move on from what I think. I like it. So what else do you guys have?
Well, as I said before, I like you guys, I enjoyed the teen romance stuff. I like MJ. I think maybe she's a little too quirky here and there, but it's not like Kat Dennings level of quirk or anything like that. So it's more charming than anything.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I found myself charmed by Peter Parker wanting to take a step back from like superhero life and just try to kiss a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that's more interesting than having him to overcome like having powers or trying to defeat a supervillain or anything like that. Like, just the class field trip and the student dynamics within that field trip. Like, it all felt fun and fresh for something like the MCU, Like, teens competing over a girl, or like being nervous about like, do I look cool,
Yeah, and I think that's what's always shined about Spider-Man to me is the Peter Parker stuff. And especially with the movies, like once they get into the action villain stuff is usually where I start to check out. And that's what both of these films have done successfully, I think, is
kept you checked in.
Kept me checked in, but like I think they've leaned a little bit more into the average guy drama of it and like him dealing with it. And then it's like you said, in this one they go a little heavier too, and the fact that he just doesn't want to be Spider-Man for a while and take a trip.
Agreed, yeah. I think I would like Aunt May to get to do more than like being the hot aunt. That joke is wearing a little thin on me.
Right.
So that's my major complaint about like some of the humor in this movie is like some of it feels like a little forced or just carried over or goes on a little too long. But ultimately, it doesn't ruin anything for me, you know? But I would like to see Aunt May get to do a little more than just be the butt of a, oh my God, she's unusually hot joke.
I mean, it was okay in Homecoming, I think. Like, it's not my favorite joke in the film. And to keep it going any longer is probably not good.
Yeah, I agree.
And the fact that she doesn't have anything else to do. Like, it'd be okay if that joke kept going, but if she was doing something else besides just being the hot aunt, right?
Right. She's basically just like Pepper Potts of this Spider-Man franchise.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I have one more thing to talk about before moving into spoilers, so whatever you guys want to talk about now, go ahead.
What I will say is kind of going off a little bit of what Chris talked about being it being like the next episode in the MCU films. I think that this film in some ways feels a lot like an episode to get us to like the next movie. You know what I mean? Like I feel like when I think about it on its own in a vacuum, a lot of the stuff that goes on feels kind of just okay. You know what I mean? Does this movie to you guys feel like just sort of like a, you know, like the second movie in a trilogy sometimes doesn't like feel like a movie on its own?
I see what you mean. But it feels more character-based, in my opinion, than a lot of MCU movies. Like, a lot of MCU movies actually are like placeholders to get to the next one. And this may be true of this one as well, but I also feel like the teen dynamics were so fun. And a lot of what this movie's trying to say, I think, is actually interesting.
It's kind of, yeah, there is that. And I also feel like it's kind of like a bottle episode, right? Like what you're saying, Mike, you know, it's characters. And so not a lot necessarily happens that is important to the overall scheme of like the Avengers, but you get Peter Parker and his growth and things that change with his friends and family type of thing, right? And I think that's
his personal life.
Yeah. I think that's interesting. There's more to that too, but until spoilers, I can't really.
Yeah, exactly. And I mentioned this earlier, and I'll have to be brief here, and then we can just move on into spoilers and go nuts. But this movie seems a lot more political than other MCU movies. It seems like John Watts really wants to bring in a modern-day climate. And I'll go more into that later, but there are some, I guess, easy things we can talk about here. Like, I think at one point, Ned says, like, Europeans love Americans. And I believe at some point, someone comments on how, like, the news doesn't lie.
Right.
You know, and there's also a lot to do with telling people exactly what to believe in this movie and forming lies into truth and trying to make masses believe something that is simply not true. And I find that to be very interesting and relevant to today. And yeah, I think I'll shelve that for now until we get into spoilers.
Sure. Yeah. Kudos to Marvel for putting that stuff in there. I don't think
agreed.
It's super overt, but I'm glad they put that in there.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I want little kids to grow up second guessing the news. I want a child who sees this movie to be like, oh yeah, don't trust the news. Got it. You know what I mean? Like, that's a good thing for them to hear, like in their childhood entertainment.
Agreed.
Yeah. Always question everything.
Mm-hmm. Always.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you guys say we move into spoilers so we can actually talk about what this movie is about?
Let's do it.
That sounds good. Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
One other point. Do you guys feel like this movie came too soon after Endgame? Do you feel like you were ready for another movie? Because I kind of wish I had a little bit more space.
I kind of mentioned that earlier. I was saying I felt full after Endgame, and I wasn't looking forward to this as a result of it. I think the movie ended up winning me over, especially the more I think about it later. However, yeah, I mean, if you would have asked me walking into the theater, could you delay this movie another 6 months? I'd have said yes.
Yeah. I just say, it's an appetite thing, I think, like you said. That's being full is a good way to put it.
And appetite-wise, I mean, I think this is a good dessert. And I think there is going to be, I'm not sure when the next Marvel movie comes out. I think it'll be halfway through next year. So there will be a good gap of Marvel movies coming up. So I think this is a good capper, a nice dessert to the Avengers meal.
Like an epilogue.
Yeah, nice epilogue. Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
So, yeah, I like it in that way. But you guys aren't wrong about being full and all that stuff.
All right. But now we can go into spoilers.
Okay, well, actually, real quick, I'm sitting at a 3.5 out of 5, probably. Maybe 4 out of 5 for an MCU movie, but for like a standalone movie, 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm probably right around there, 3.5, or I'm probably a little bit, maybe 3 to 3.5 is kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm at 3 to 3.5 as well.
Cool. All right, just wanted to get those in there, and moving into spoilers.
Wait. JK.
Stop it, Chris. Stop it.
Good one.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
Give me one of the cigarettes you got up there. I'll tell you all about it.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
And here we go.
Okay, so what did you guys think of Mysterio? I will just say real quick that I enjoyed the hell out of watching Jake Gyllenhaal have fun in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, he is having a absolute blast here, and as in turn, I'm having a blast watching him have a blast.
His dialogue seems a little cheesy at first, but then of course there's the reveal that he is evil and that he's writing all his own dialogue type of thing, and then it all starts to make sense. But he has, you're right, he's having the greatest time delivering these, cheesy lines. I think his first line's something like, "You don't want to be a part of this," and it's, it's so great the way he delivers it, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, the bad guys seem so terrible. Like, I say bad guys, but like the elemental spirits that they're fighting, it seems so dumb. And like the way that they defeat them doesn't make sense. But and I love that once the twist happens and you realize, like you said, Chris, he's writing it all. It's like, oh, okay, that's why it's stupid. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. And he comes up with that like alternate universes thing, and like his whole spiel of like, this is exactly the kind of thing people will believe right now. Like,
yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it works both for the MCU climate, and it also works for like the double meaning I was talking about earlier with like the political angle, forming lies into truth and mass deception and all that stuff. I think Mysterio is up there with Michael Keaton as the best Spider-Man villain, maybe even better than Michael Keaton. I don't know.
I still like Michael Keaton quite a bit.
I do too. Me too.
Yeah.
God
Michael
bless him.
Keaton has so much more weight to him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think the Gyllenhaal thing is missing. It's got a lot, like Gyllenhaal has so much charisma, and this bad guy is so fun to watch, and is like it has a lot in entertainment value. But Keaton had like the gravity.
Yeah, he was more grounded with the daughter storyline and stakes because he's a family man. Mm-hmm. That was all really interesting,
and was genuinely threatening. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that scene in the car in Spider-Man: Homecoming is one of the best scenes in the entire MCU.
Yeah,
I agreed. Yeah,
but I think it's debatable on who's better. I'm with you. It's close.
Yeah. It was funny because like he has this clunky exposition as soon as you find out he's a bad guy, and on any other movie I would hate a scene like this, but for some reason Jake Gyllenhaal is having such a blast and he's selling it so much that like I enjoyed when he's talking about Tony Stark and the flashbacks to Civil War, and then he's like, and then
barf.
You did this. Yeah, barf. And then he's like, and you specifically had this job, and then you, Sarah, you helped us do this, and he basically explains every step of the plan to where like the elementals make sense and how he was doing it. And there's even flashbacks to Iron Man 1, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, and it's inserted him into like the scene.
Yeah.
Which is funny.
And I think that's really cool how Iron Man and his legacy kind of hangs over this movie in more than one way, So like the legacy of Iron Man screwing over these people essentially, and also the legacy of what Iron Man left Tom Holland or Spider-Man is really interesting and a good dynamic as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good way to subvert the your mentor becomes the villain trope by just having your mentor not become a villain, but have him create the villains through his own character flaws.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that's like it's a fun twist to be on the ride for, and like so I don't mind it in that sense. I will say that it's a bit obvious.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know that that's a bad thing, but I just remember like he's the whole time where Tom Holland's about to give him like the glasses.
Edith, even dead, I'm the hero.
Yeah, that's funny.
It is funny.
But the whole time he's getting ready to give him the glasses, you're just like, come on, man. Don't do that.
Yeah, quit being stupid.
I think with this villain, though, with it being Mysterio, I mean, I knew before I walked into the theater, like who the villain was,
Sure. I think everyone does who knows Spider-Man. But they really go for it at the beginning. Like, they really try to make it seem like it's different, even though you don't believe it the whole time. I appreciate them playing it straight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you guys. When the first one, Homecoming, came out, I was so surprised that they didn't do an origin for Spider-Man. You know, we'd seen it so many times, I was thankful that we didn't get another origin. Towards the end of this movie, I thought to myself, oh wait, we just got a two movie arc of Spider-Man's origin. What do you guys think of like Iron Man taking the place of Uncle Ben as, you know, the mentor and the person that calls Spider-Man to action, and it being a two movie origin story as opposed to no origin?
I don't know if I necessarily view it as a 2-movie origin story, but yeah, you're right. Tony Stark does take the place of Uncle Ben, and I think that works better, to be honest with you. I think because he is the mentor and he's more like central to the plot instead of just central to Spider-Man. You have other characters dealing with the fallout of Iron Man as well. The whole world in this movie is dealing with the fallout of not having Iron Man. You know, you see the murals everywhere. You see the shadow he has cast over the world, both good and bad.
Movies, yeah.
Yeah. There's documentaries on planes about him.
At first, I thought the murals were a bit much because like it seemed like every time we went to a new scene or like a new city, it kind of like had its establishing shot that involved an Iron Man mural. Yeah. And for a bit there, I was like, okay, I get it. He's dead. I thought they were like milking it, but then I realized like you guys have said that like it's about balancing Iron Man's legacy of like how people view him versus like there's this whole section of people rising up against him because of like his attitude and his arrogance.
Yeah, exactly. Like we view him as a savior, which he is. He saved everybody. He did the most heroic thing you can do. But let's not pretend Tony Stark wasn't a pretty shitty guy at times, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And even Happy addresses that near the end. He's like, Tony was a mess. You know, like Peter hero worshipped him, but Happy was there the whole time. He knows Tony was a mess. We know Tony was a mess. So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
One of the things that I really enjoyed, I don't remember where I was in the movie, is around the like end of the second act, I guess. But that whole sequence where Spider-Man goes to like fight Jake Gyllenhaal, but then like he ends up in that whole illusion world.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that was really well done.
Going from like place to place, and like it's really difficult to describe, which is why I'm kind of struggling with it. But like
it's trippy.
It's visually really cool. It's one of the most unique action sequences that I can think of in a Marvel film, and I thought that was really, really great. Like the high point of the film for me.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think one of my favorite sequences is whenever it zooms out and he's like in a snow globe that ends up being Mysterio's helmet.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Like, God, this is so cool. You know, like that we're seeing this on a screen and not like a comic book page. Like to see it actually realized in live action form, I thought was really cool. And you believe it. Like this guy, like, you know, there's a lot of times in these movies where like the villain, you're like, they have to win through some kind of contrivance, you know? And Mysterio has a lot of contrivances, but they seem real. They seem so scary when you're in the moment. Like, if you're having illusions pulled over your eyes all the time and you have no idea what's real, it would be so disorienting. You know, he's running into walls. He's falling off of edges.
Mm-hmm.
He has no idea where he's at. He's getting hit by trains. You know what I mean? Like, he's outside in the middle of, like, the sunlight, but he thinks he's, like, in a cave or, you know, in a cellar somewhere getting beat up by a lot of Spider-Men.
Right.
I think that really helped the payoff too when he finally realizes his spider tingle or his Peter tingle.
His Peter tingle.
That's the best joke in the movie, by the way.
Well, that's his arc, right? Like it's to learn how to see through the bullshit
and trust himself too. Yeah,
to trust your instinct and don't fall for what everyone else is telling you is true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, use your own moral compass, learn how to overcome it, and maybe then will you stand a chance. That's what the movie is really trying to say in my eyes, and that's what I think is more relevant to today than ever, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing it does is set up me to be on the edge of my seat for the rest of the film, because everything that happens, I'm like, is this real?
Yeah, totally.
I don't know. I don't trust anything after that sequence.
Yeah, exactly. Like the end of the movie, I have no idea if it was actually the ending of the movie that I think I saw.
I like the moment where, you know, Spider-Man's like, asks Edith, is he really dead? And I thought that was, you know, he's questioning what's real and what's
like,
not.
Is this real? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at the end, we still don't really have an idea. Like, he could be dead, but probably not.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoyed that as well.
So all this stuff with the blip and the kids, what did you guys think of the kid that grew up, and when they all come back, he's much older and much more good looking, and he was after
David?
Peter Parker the whole time. Was that his name, David?
I think it was David.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that. Well, I enjoyed that he was after Peter Parker the whole time, but I also enjoyed that just this kid all of a sudden is the same age as everybody else. I enjoyed that.
His name is Brad Davis, by the way.
Brad.
Which is
not
close
David.
to David. Davis,
Yeah.
David.
Makes sense. Brad. That's a better name. Yeah, no, I totally like that. That's probably some of my favorite stuff in the movie was watching Peter Parker be an insecure teenager. Like, this is Spider-Man. He went to space and saved the world, or kind of. He participated in saving the world. You know, he's done amazing shit. And he is nervous because there's a handsome dude who's also likes the same girl he does.
Yeah.
Like, that is being a teenager incarnate. You know what I mean? Like, that is like the essence of a nervous teen. And I really appreciate it. I enjoyed even the payoff and the kiss. It seemed so genuine and sweet. It wasn't like a romantic movie kiss. It was like a awkward teenager kiss.
That kiss is great. You know, Spider-Man, the first trilogy or whatever, is so well known for this, the upside down kiss, you know?
Yeah, in the rain.
Yeah, I think that this kiss very much more describes what it's like, what your first kiss is like when you're in high school, you know, like you're not exactly sure what's going on. And I think that this kiss is definitely better than that, you know, in that way. I thought that was great. And I also, the other thing that I really liked that this movie did was it told Zendaya that he's Spider-Man. The thing that always bothers me about superheroes, and I think the thing that MCU did, like, made such a great decision in getting rid of secret identities, because you're always fooling somebody and they look like an idiot because, you know, like, they can't put two and two together, right?
Yeah.
Telling Zendaya that he's Spider-Man not only brings her into the fold, so she's part of the group now, you know, like, and makes that fun, but also doesn't make her look constantly like an idiot. And the fact that she 67% figured it out on her own is great.
Yeah, the fact that she put it together using events from the first one, even events that weren't just forgotten about as soon as they were over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you disappeared that one time and Spider-Man showed up in Washington, D.C. That's suspicious. And ever since then, I've been onto you. Like, that's a smart thing that a normal person in real life would do. And like in so many of those like past superhero movies with secret identities, it's like people just don't think about things once they happen. After that, like, they don't reference them again, or they don't like, wait a minute, you're always disappearing. Whereas, like, that's the first thing she tells him, you know? She's like, you're always disappearing, and it's suspicious.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're right, it brings her into the fold now, so she can participate in the fun things like Ned does, you know?
Yeah, she's part of the family now.
I agree. One thing that I think the after-credit scenes fix is the whole movie I was thinking to myself, why is Nick Fury such a dumbass now? And then the best twist ever happens, which is that we get more Ben Mendelsohn.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And then Nick Fury's up in space doing something, you know, space-oriented. I assume he's forming a new, the sword era, or, you know, like the sword, the space version of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
But really, who cares? We'll find more about that later. But really, I guess the major implication I care about is that Ben Mendelsohn is still doing stuff in the MCU, and they haven't forgotten about him, and they're going to keep using him. And I love that guy. He was the best part of Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting that he will have a larger role to play in the future, I think.
Agreed.
Speaking of good actors that made an appearance in this movie, especially in the post-credits, J. Jonah Jameson is back, and it's still played by the same guy.
Yeah.
That I can't remember the name of.
J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons, yeah.
Yeah, my crowd reacted to that. They were really happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't fix what ain't broke from like the other movies. And one thing that was him.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. Everyone loves him in that role. So yeah, why not? Don't fix what ain't broke. I agree.
Playing as Alex Jones, his best Alex Jones impersonation.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and that's another thing that ties in with like the political climate of today, right? Is like now he's a website blogger instead of like a newspaperman. He's actually like an Alex Jones type, like you were saying, running some kind of like stupid conspiracy theory website. And yeah, this movie feels very modern, very today, very on the nose in some places, but you know what? I enjoyed it, and especially for a kids movie, this is teaching them to be wary of all the right things.
Yeah.
And the whole like thing that happens in the end scene where there's the video of Mysterio giving away Peter Parker's identity really sets up for like the next movie. Like maybe that's part of the reason I said earlier about like I kind of felt like this felt like a bridge between this and like the end game and the next movie. But I think it's because like that got me so much more excited to see the next Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, like how's he going to deal with this and go back to school?
Yeah, exactly. Like what happens now?
Yeah, he's not done with school yet.
I think on that note, it's like one of the most successful of those like end credit sequences for making me excited for the next one, right?
Yeah, I agreed. Both of the end credit sequences I thought were pretty good. Usually one of them ends up being a joke, but both of them have implications for what comes next, and I like it.
They got to rebuild stuff up now. Like they built stuff up so much that like the last several have been just jokes, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Endgame felt so full and satisfying for every single arc that they have to start putting out new threads.
Exactly.
Do you guys feel that the end credits have more important things that happen in them than actually things that happen in the movie? And I think, Justin, you were kind of talking about that earlier.
Only for the MCU as a greater whole.
Yeah.
I think for Spider-Man, I think, like I said earlier, I think there's enough character work, and character work is what I really care about. That, like, you know, the movie, to me, it was about Peter Parker learning to see through the bullshit and also, you know, growing up, becoming a little bit more mature, learning how to kiss a girl and, like, talk to a girl, like, forming an aspect of his personality that was still very much a child. So I enjoy seeing him grow up, you know, as long as they can come up with organic lessons to teach him. I don't care if they put, like, the MCU post-credit stingers in the post-credits because, yeah, Nick Fury's fine and everything, but I'm in a Spider-Man movie, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that, you know, him getting revealed and his identity revealed to the world, like, that is more important ultimately than anything that happened in the actual movie. So you're not wrong.
Yeah.
It's just a question. I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily. I think you're right. It's the best cliffhanger, you know?
Well, here's my thing. Is that first after credit sequence should have just been the end of the movie. There's no reason to put it
I agree
in
with
the after credits. Like, it picks up right as they're swinging. You know what I mean? Like, it ends with them swinging with him swinging with MJ, and it picks up with him swinging with MJ. So just make that the end of the movie, and then make one after credit sequence.
Yeah, we don't need both of them. And you're right. It does feel like it's part of the movie, you know?
Yeah, I honestly forgot that it was an after credit sequence until we started talking about it, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess that is an important thing that happens after the movie. But in my brain, it's part of the movie.
Yeah. It is, yeah. And while we're on it, just for consistency's sake, I do want to say that I think they're hitting the joke way too hard on having someone about to say fuck and then cutting away. Like,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure was like the end credit sequence did that in Infinity War. That's how Homecoming ended, with Aunt May almost saying fuck, and then it cut to credits. And then now here we are again with, I think Peter almost says fuck or something, right? And then it cuts away.
Yeah. I remember it from Spider-Man Homecoming. I don't remember what you're talking about in Infinity War, but I'm sure.
It's when Nick Fury's starting to disappear.
That's
and
a
he
Samuel
says,
L. Jackson moment.
It
I
is.
guess it still counts. It still counts.
Yeah. And I think they're hitting that note a little too hard these days.
I think so too. I thought of it in this one because of Homecoming. I didn't think about the Infinity War one, but yeah, that just drives your point home even more. So, agreed.
Minor complaint.
Yeah, but overall, I liked it, but I think I'm done talking about it, unless you guys have anything else.
No, I'm good till the next one, whenever that is.
3 years, 2 years, whatever.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's the show.
Yeah, that does it. Thank you guys so much for listening. It's good to be back.
Yeah, good to have you.
Yeah. And then, of course, thank you, Jake Wagner-Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
All right, stay tuned to this feed. We will be putting out the Casually Criterion episode sometime soon that Chris mentioned earlier on Jean-Luc Godard's Weekend. We also are going to put out a episode on Midsommar, the new Ari Aster movie. We were going to do it this week the same time as Spider-Man, but we figured both of those movies require heavy spoiler sections, and we'd be here for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and we're going to have Peyton back for that one too, so
yeah, and Peyton will return, so it should be a fun discussion on Midsommar. I'm very much looking forward to dissecting it and exploring my feelings on that movie a little bit more, because they are complicated as of now.
Yeah, me too. So now you guys have homework, listener. Go see Midsommar by next week.
Do it.
All right, if you want to send us your questions on Midsommar or your thoughts on our review of Spider-Man Far From Home, if you want to rebuttal, tell us this film is really great or really terrible, like, Matt Ward did for Booksmart. You can send those to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast, or you can email those to us at casualcinemedia@gmail.com.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. It's great to have you back, Justin, and happy birthday. We'll see everybody else next time.
Happy birthday to you. Bye-bye.
Happy birthday. What the fuck?